in Gatwick. Now, you might have heard there is a little bit of a strike aspect. Now, what happens on the 21st, you had 40,000 cleaners, signalers, maintenance workers at Heathrow. All trains are required to 1 up to 4 changes in that way. You're looking anywhere from 2 to 3.5 hours. Gatwick, there's direct trains, approximately 1 time you pick up the all-day ticket, 13.5 to 19.6 pounds. Now, rental cars, near the dock, you have Ava's Rent-A-Car, and that's on dock number 8, Herbert Walker Avenue. You're looking at about 60 to 90 pounds to rent a car. Post office right in the area, I'll show you that in City Center, and that's open from 9 to 5:30. Restaurants and pubs start opening up between 11:30 and noon. Tourist Bureau, at the library, there are some tourist items. Also, there is a little shop there, right, and I'll show you this, and on the high street, and they have left luggage, and they also have a little bit of tourist information for you. Now, you do have the Mion Golf Club, and this is about 20 kilometers, 12 miles. You're looking at a round of 18, about 120 pounds inclusive. Wi-Fi, there was Wi-Fi the last time we were in the cruise terminal. Also, the library offers free internet, and almost all your pubs and cafes are. We're looking here, going back about 200 to 250 million years ago. You had the continent of Pangaea existed. This continent was a combination of basically what South America, Africa, and the Americas are. And what happens at this time, the river system that we refer to as the Amazon flowed through the continent of Pangaea. But it flowed actually the opposite way, that way. It actually went from the east to the west, from what is now the Niger River in Africa, all the way through South America into the Pacific, exactly opposite of today's flow of the Amazon region. What happens about 60 million years ago, you had the tectonic plates. These tectonic plates shifted. As they shifted, the land area within the western region of South America, that was forced upwards. As it was forced upwards, created the Andes and the mountains, it reversed the flow of the water. And that way here, it still rolls this way down into the Atlantic. It is one of the only areas the Amazon region has never experienced an ice age. It's also never experienced at any time in history any type of drought. Now, back that way here, the land bridge in Central America between North and South America, that's only a few million years old. Therefore, the flora and the fauna of the Amazon was able to evolve almost completely uninterrupted. Now, it is through a lost Spanish conquistador that gave the name to this largest river and also the rainforest on Earth. In the 1540s, you had a gentleman, Francisco de Orellana. He returned to Europe, and he returned to Europe with an account of a vast river and attacked by extremely hostile Indians. Some of them led by a band of female warriors who reportedly attacked his landing party with poison arrows whilst hidden behind tropical foliage. Now, the Europeans, they thought these women warrior were the last remaining members of the mythical tribe of warriors whose queen was slain at the Achilles at Troy. So what happens is they turned around, they named this region after that mythical area, the Amazon. Now, the area he was attacked, Orellana, is near an area called Parintines. Now, researchers believe that these brave and strong female warriors were actually the local Indian population males who had very little hair on their body. So from a distance, they thought they were attacked by females, and you do not tell the local people in Parintines because they like the original story. They're very happy about the women being the stronger. Now, at any given time, the Amazon River contains at least 1/5 of the world's fresh water. It's located in 3.6 million square miles of rainforest. It is the largest and also most ecologically complex river system and sanctuaries in the entire world. There's over 51,000 square miles of navigable rivers within the Amazon area. Now, in the Amazon basin, there's over 1,000 tributaries alone that come out of the Amazon. Some of these tributaries are longer than the entire Mississippi River system. The Amazon River contains more fresh water than the next 5 to 10 river systems combined. Now, I say 5 to 10 because in rainy season, you have to take the next 10. In the dry season, it's 5, and I'll explain that in a few moments. The daily output of water Mean water each day taken during dry and also the time of the rainy is enough water to supply New York City in one day their water for 10 years. Just what comes out. The brown water of the Amazon can be seen for up 200 kilometers, 121 miles at sea. I went on the small ship, the Pacific Princess, when I went up there, the one that was recently sold. What happens with that, we were on the bridge wing. It was an open bridge wing. I took a bucket, and we were 40 miles, 64 kilometers out before the Amazon. We dropped the bucket down. I pulled the water up in front of the guests. We put a hydrometer with the captain in it, 100% fresh water. That's how strong the water is coming out of the Amazon that way. Now, 0.8 of a kilometer, a half a mile of coastline is added each year to the Atlantic coast next to the Amazon due to the sediment that comes out. By the time the Amazon River reaches the Atlantic, the mouth of the river, it stretches from north to south 200 miles, 320 kilometers. That's the distance between London and Paris, and that's the mouth of the river. You have on the northern side Macapa, and then on the southern side you do have the area of Belém. So it's very interesting. So once again, the distance of the Amazon at its mouth is the distance of London to Paris. Now, depending on which route you actually take into the river, you're looking at about 860 miles or 1,384 kilometers to 1,600 kilometers or 1,000 miles upriver. Now, you're looking at a vast forest, covers over half of Brazil, and for that matter, you're looking at it covering about 1/4 of South America. Total area of the Amazon, 9.3 million square kilometers or 3.6 million square miles. It extends from Brazil into Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia. There are 3 kinds of forests in the Amazon. The floodplain zone. Now, the floodplain zone is areas that are flooded by the river systems. That way, in the wet season, you have the agapos. The agapos is where most of the people reside in the Amazon. These are areas that are occasionally flooded. But we're looking at the water going up in the Amazon, and I'll show you photos of that, about 6 stories tall. Now, the last of the Amazon most people don't realize is terra firma. You do have unflooded uplands. These are completely unaffected by the rainy season. Now, many people think the entire Amazon region is wet and steamy torrential jungle. On the contrary, 25% of the Amazon is actually on what's referred to as dry savannas. Now, these are actually subject to extreme dry periods. Now, 5 to 10% of the Amazon is on the floodplain, and that depends on dry or wet during the dry or wet season. Most of the cities are situated on the floodplains. These are the ones that I'll talk about most threatened by man's impact. Now, most cruise ships, they travel up the Amazon at the beginning of high water season. That's the high water season, the melting of the snowpack of the Andes, and also the extreme floods that normally take place in Colombia, Bolivia, and Peru. Now, normally the river begins to rise in December. Recently, in the last few years, it has actually started to rise as early as October. If you ever were to get up to the cruise terminal 1,000 miles up the Amazon in Manaus, on the cruise terminal, there is a wall with markings for each year how high the water. And there's one that is about 10 foot above the beginning of the building. That's actually the highest flood they had. Now, the rise and fall of the Amazon, it averaged 18 meters, 60 feet. As I mentioned, it says 630, it's a 5-story building. So once again, in the area, let's say around September, to the area of March, you're looking at 60 feet of water coming up. The people adapt to this, and I'll show you how they adapt to it in that way. Now, the area in Manaus, the average there is about 10 meters or 33 feet of a rise. Now, in Brazil, only area between Manaus and Belém, from the mouth of the river to Manaus, is called the Amazon River. Once it goes west of Manaus, it becomes the Rio Solimões, and it is that way right till it reaches the Peruvian border. Then it turns back and is renamed the Amazon River. So it's very interesting. You're looking at a total of 3,900 miles long, or 6,276 kilometers. The Nile, 6,598 kilometers, or 4,100. But when you consider the source after the discovery of Laguna McIntyre, and you're all the way to the Atlantic, you're looking at 4,150 miles. 50 miles longer than the Nile. Now, most Brazilians and many scientists now believe the Amazon River is truly the longest river in the world. Now, most of the visitors, you'll visit the area, and these are the civilized areas. The people are called the Caboclas, but there's over 300,000 true Amazonian Indians, some who have still never been in contact with the quote-unquote civilized world. They have their tribes, over 200 different dialects. And these areas, I'm very happy to say, are getting very hard to get a permit. You need a permit to go in to the true Amazon, and they're trying to restrict it. They're trying to restrict the growth around the area. Now, it's believed there are many as 15,000 different species of animals contained within the Amazon region, 80% nocturnal. Due to the heat and humidity, many of the animals come out at night. Now, you do have here, from 1999 to 2009, scientists did a discovery. They found 1,200 new species within the Amazon region. That's a rate of 1 every 3 days. This included 627 plants, 257 different species of fish, 216 different amphibians, 55 reptiles, 16 birds, and 39 mammals. This 10-year total would be extremely more high if they included the vast majority of invertebrates that were discovered also. Now, scientists, the last I've just read up on, they now feel that once they have everything accounted for and getting into categorization, you're looking at 30% of all species on Earth located in the Amazon. They recently studied a 1.29 square kilometer, so half square mile of forest tract. Within that half mile, they found 6,000 species of plants contained within that 1/2 mile tract. There are 3,000 species of fish so far discovered in the rivers and lakes. In the catfish species alone, 500 different varieties contained within the one species. There are close to 1,000 species of birds in the Amazon region. One of all 5 birds known to man is in the Amazon. Now, if anybody here has the tropical freshwater aquariums, many of your fish actually come from the Amazon River. They're exported from this area. Now, unfortunately, about 1/4 of the Amazon has been affected by man, 30% of the region being destroyed over the last 70 years. Main thing is cattle ranching. That destroys about 80%. That way you have soybean farming, mining, felling a hardwood forest, damming, and that contributes to the rest. Now, what happens, most people think the Amazon is a thick jungle soil. What it is, it's red clay dirt. The really only soil there is what falls down and the compost. And that's what everything grows in. Because once you get past that layer, you're looking at red clay. So what happens when you burn the area, you'll have a little bit of grass growing. But once that grass is eaten, it's years before it will ever come back. So you have to burn more. You have to clear more. So the area just keeps going in that way. It really is. There's no trees with deep roots. All the trees that come out, the conifers can't grow there. Your palms and everything, the roots go out to the side. Nothing goes really down into the red clay dirt. Now, very interesting, when you talk to the locals there, remember, there is no real roads connecting the major cities. Patentines has no roads to Santarém. There's no roads going into Manaus. Everything is done by boat, whether it be their boats going back and forth like they have buses. You have private boats. So when you talk to someone and you say where you're from, they will say, I'm 3 hours upriver, or I'm 2 days away. They actually refer to the time it takes to travel by boat to get to a place. Now, you have 2 types of river systems in the Amazon. You have the black water or the blue and clear water. What transpires, you're right at the equator. When you go above, you have the black water coming down from the mountains in that way. The black water is picking up leaves. It's picking up debris. It's making tannic acid. So that's the deep water tannic acid. Then you have the blue, and the blue waters there that way here, they are coming in from the clear areas. They don't have the tannic acid in it. But the one thing about the area of the black waters, that tannic acid stops mosquitoes. So most of your cities, you'll find not on the Amazon, they're coming onto the area, like Manaus is on Rio Negro. And that is a black river because the mosquitoes do not produce good in that water. Also, there's not one bridge that crosses the entire Amazon everywhere. Now, the Amazon, it flows at a rate about 4.6 miles per hour. The average temperature is 75 to 79 degrees, 24 to 26. Reason being, it's coming from the Andes, the snow melt, so it is a little bit cooler. Your black and your blue or clear rivers, they flow at a rate of about 1.6 miles per hour at an average temperature of 86 degrees, 30 degrees Celsius. Now you have here, once again, the tannic acid, but that is dark water, but it is rather not that dense. Your Amazon is picking up the mud. It's picking up debris as it comes down. So what happens is you have the waters and they come and meet, but they don't blend right away. You can travel for over a mile where the rivers will meet and you'll see the distinct pattern of the waters as you go through. It's called the meeting of the waters in that way. Also, you do have here, that's the mouth of the Amazon. So it goes all the way over to that side. That's over by Belém. Then you come in up top here. That is the Macapa area. And you can see it is branching out all over. So that's the water coming out. Once again, up to 200 miles, you have that brown coming out. Fresh water. Many different little tributaries coming through. Twisting and turning, but the water is, when the pilots come through, very deep in many areas. The cruise ships don't have a problem. What happens, I'll show you in Manaus, there's actually a duty-free zone where the large container ships go up and they pick up goods. The problem of that way is when the cruise ships go up, water is very difficult. Water everywhere, not a drop to drink. The Amazon is so muddy, the filters on the ships cannot filter that water. So we cannot make fresh water. So a lot of times when we sailed up, you would have the laundry not operating whilst you're in the Amazon. So it's very interesting in that way. Here you do have the area Brazil. You see Belém, Manaus, that's 1,000 miles up the area. That is the Amazon. So take a look. That is over one quarter of South America, the Amazon region. Now this is the late Captain Laura McIntyre. That is Laguna McIntyre. It's up on the top of the Andes. That's the water coming out the side. That is the first flow of water for the Amazon River. Now here's the Amazon in Peru. Now look at those boats. No freeboard. Now the difference from when I first went up to now is all the boats now mostly have motors. Years ago, you had these being rowed. And it was amazing, some of the small canoes. Now remember, you got that water moving at such a rate to see little old ladies paddling against the current and making time. So it is fascinating that way with the boats, but that's a little taxi. That is the area in Peru. That is the Explorer. Unfortunately, she was lost in Antarctica, but not one person was injured or killed when she went down. That is one of the riverboats. Now right there, you're looking at one of the first meetings of the water. That's the Black River. And you can see the brown water of the Amazon. So you see the meetings of the water, you can see the distinct line that goes through. This is beautiful Iquitos. This is a beautiful city. Now most of those motorbikes, they're taxis. You get a motorcycle taxi. Now here, this is where it turns from the Amazon, now going into the Solimões, going into the area of Manaus. Now here's the Amazon in Colombia, small little region. This is the meetings of water in Manaus. This is the Blackwater River. And you can see the pattern going straight across. This is the meeting water in Santarém. And that's the blue water. That's the clear water. Now, boats in the Amazon. These are your boats, how they go from city to city. You know how when you travel, you have a really nice looking suitcase? Well, when they travel, you have to have a good looking hammock. Because what you do is you'll see you hook up hammocks all throughout, and that's how you travel. So a really good looking hammock, your class. There's hundreds. The new Queen Elizabeth. Now here, the container ships going up to Manaus. The little local boats bringing the cruise ships all the time. And you can see they're rowing. This is coming into its area called Boca de Valeria. Now this is the Macapa pilot station. This is the pilot station. I don't have the photo with me. I wish I did. I got to go ashore here and get to their football pitch. Because their football pitch is on the equator. So you're playing one side of the equator against the other side of the equator. And at halftime you switch. But also this is where, unfortunately, Sir Peter Blake, who won the America's Cup. Then he took over the boats from Cousteau Society. He came up with the boats. He dropped off people up in Venezuela. And then what happens is he was going around to the Caribbean, coming through, and then go and meet them on when they got through. They were going to do jungle exploration. He stopped for the night to clear, leaving, and they said they couldn't clear him till the morning. So he anchored off, and the water rats came on, and they went to rob him. He shot one of the water rats. They shot and killed him. In the beginning, New Zealand protested, and they went, well, if he didn't shoot the person, he wouldn't have got shot. New Zealand went and made a protest to the UN. Within 3 more days, they caught all the river rats who did shoot him. Now, this is life on the Amazon. This is what you see from a ship. You don't see the jungle. You hear the jungle, but it's so thick, you don't really see. Now, this here, you can see the house raised up. That's for the water to go up. Now, this will also be on a little river area, always, or a stream. And they'll have that house. They'll have another house higher in the elevation also. So you'll see here the rivers, the houses. Those are floating hospitals. They bring them to different regions. Now I'm going to take you to flora and fauna of the Amazon. Some great beauty in this area. There's your macaws. Now many of the people have these. They do not cut the wings. They would just don't leave because they're well maintained and fed, so they just hang out. They want to fly away. I was talking to one young lad last time I was there, and he turned around and said the bird was gone for 3 months, and then came back, and acted like it never left. That is your short green-tailed parrot. You got your little parakeets. That is a harpy eagle. That's the largest bird of prey in the world. This talons you see right there, they're the size of grizzly bear's claws. They are an unbelievable hunter. Now here you're looking at the aspect of your black-collared hawk. Toucans. Now the locals would call that a blue toucan because they don't want to describe all the colors on it. They describe the color of the feet. So it goes by the feet. And by the way, they do not have a strong bite. They are very, very easy. Now here we have the terns, your swallow. This here is what's called the great Kissidee. Now you do have all these different beautiful birds. This is a red-breasted blackbird. Of course, the ugly birds, the vultures. That is the lesser yellow-headed vulture. Your giant egret. Now, giant egret and giant herons, you can tell the difference. An egret will have a black leg. The giant white herons will have a yellowish flesh-colored leg. And that's the difference between the egrets and the herons in that way. That is a tiger heron. That whole brown area you see is its neck pushed down. Its neck goes out about that long. And that's how they hunt, because they'll stand by the water and snatch at the water. That is your Amazonian kingfisher. That's your ring kingfisher. That is something I'm very happy I got to see, and only once in all my years down there. That's a Holstein. That was the most hunted bird for feathers years ago during the boom of the rubber. That was a beautiful bird's feathers. They were almost taken to extinction, and I got to see one. Now here, these are different. This is a Kapasipi. Kapasipi, you see the bird right there? They go inside, they have the hanging nest, they are that way. Those longer ones are Ora pendula. So that's going in an Ora pendula. You do have, of course, your hummingbirds. Now these are your cormorants. Cormorants are very interesting. The Asians use them as fishing birds. And what happens is they would take a metal ring with a rope and tie it around the bird's neck. You put it on the back of the boat, it sees the fish, it goes down, it catches the fish. With the metal ring on its neck, it can't swallow it. So you collect the fish, it does it again. At the end of the day, you feed the bird, you go out and do it again. So they were used for fishing. There is your river dolphins. Now they do have the pink dolphins here. I happen to experience those. Yep. That's another lecturer I had the pleasure of working with from Germany. That is a beautiful, beautiful fish. It's peacock bass. It is renowned for fishing. People come to Manaus to come and get that. And what happens is, there's a little protection. It looks like an eye on its back. But it is a great fish. That is my favorite fish. It's called tambaqui. Tambaqui eats during the flood season. Now what happens when the water comes up, that's when most of the fruit trees drop their fruit. They drop it into the water. Tambaqui only eats fruits, and it stores it as fat. So when you have the meat, it has a fat in the meat that's fruit. So it's one of the sweetest fish you could ever take a bite of in that way. That's your red piranha, your black piranha. Now there has not been one case documented of piranhas attacking and killing a person. What happens is the crocodiles bite you and the piranha come in and finish up. But there really isn't a dedicated actual thing of piranhas that way. That is one of the weirdest fish I've ever seen, acari. Now acari, up on top, there's a row of bones straight up. On its side, 2 rows coming out. Then there's teeth going around the outside of the body. It's a tasty fish, and that is its protection. I'll show you a photo here. What I have in my hand is the fin. It has 1 on the back, 2 on the side, and then look at that row of teeth going down. You can't grab them. If you grab them, it'll shred your hand. So the fishermen hit them over the head and then cut right away, and that's why they sell those as souvenirs everywhere, those little swords. But razor sharp. That is a piracu. Piracu is one of the largest fish. It is absolutely tasty. They're now protected. So I'm very happy to say they are raising them that way for the people who normally even farm. But how many here have seen the scale of a tarpon? They're the size of a tarpon scale, but they are very rough. So what they use them for, nail files. You can actually take it, and they also use them for decorating all the masks and everything else. But they are rough enough you can actually do your nails with just the scale. There you do have your leafcutter ants. Now here they are excellent. That way you watch the size of what they can move is phenomenal. Can you see them? That's your spiders. That's Charlie. I'll show you Charlie where he lives, if he's still with us. Now that is your tree frog, your dart frog. This is part of the poison that they would get animals out of trees. So what you do is you have the skin, you rub it, and then the kiara tree. You take the 2 different things, the sap of the tree, which is poisonous, and it's a paralyzing agent. So they were hunting a monkey, hunting something that way, blow dart, and we put it in, and it would just paralyze slowly, and the animal will fall out of the tree. So there is the dart. That is the kiara. Now you can see that's from one of the palm trees, a needle. That is your tree boa. That is your rainbow boa. Now caterpillars. Taking this photo, they were all around. The guide I was with starts laughing. And I look down, and on my sock was a caterpillar. I found out why he was laughing. When it bit me, it was at least 25 times stronger than a bee sting. It hurt. And I'm thinking, you little cute thing. But yeah, they're all around the area. The river otters. Children have the pets. There is your sloth. How many here have never seen a sloth? Yes, you have. Phone home. E.T. Steven Spielberg morphed the photo on a computer of a sloth and created E.T. So you have seen the sloths. Beautiful face. Now, if it has a diamond on its back, it's a male sloth. Also, very interesting, they're getting hit by cars more and more, and they can strike once with adrenaline lightning speed. And those claws will cut right through to the bone. So many people have gotten injured because they're very docile normally, but if they're hurt and they're feeling they're threatened, they can strike. Also, very interesting how they're hunted is they will not defecate in a tree. So they'll go up in a tree, and when they have to go, they come down. So if an animal spots him in the tree, the animal knows within 2 days he's coming down. I'll hang out for my meal. So they suffer that way. Now there's a young kid, 1987. 2006, I know what you heartless people are thinking. That sloth's really gotten old. Now, can anybody tell me what that is? A mud turtle. That's the capybara, largest rodent in the world. About 150 pounds they can get up to. They are being raised now for their fur and for their meat. They say it tastes like veal. It's one of the few animals I haven't tried, and I think I will not. Now that's an agouti. An agouti is a very cute animal. It's part of the guinea pig family. It was one of the major meats served to the prisoners in Devil's Island, up in the area of Tobago, and in also South America. They call it bushmeat. And that's the tapir. Now your monkeys, that's a woolly monkey. You have your spider monkeys. That is ucati, red-faced ucati. I call it the tourist, always red and peeling. That's your white collar tamarin. Very playful. That is your capuchin. Feeding them bananas. Now they have two tufts of hair right on the top of their head. And when they're aggravated or defensive, it jumps up. If the tufts are down, you can tell it's going to be somewhat docile. So that way I can feed them. Your little squirrel monkeys. They are the cutest little things. That's the marmoset. That's the smallest monkey. The kids love them. I also, when I was cruise director on Stella Solaris, I had an entertainer who got a little bit too much caipirinhas, and he purchased one. So we had a monkey on the boat for a while. But they almost had my watch off in seconds. They are really, really smart in that way. Now here, this is the fish. You have your sawtooth, fresh water, all your different spiders, all your different bugs, the butterflies and moths. That is all. These are all now taken on the ship. That is the size of my hand. That's a mosquito. If you're on a cruise and you have a balcony, you do not leave your door of the balcony open at night. That is on the ship, moths. That's the cruise card. Look at the size of that beetle. Now, during the mating season of the dragonflies, the ship gets covered. They come in for every bit of light, and they will literally cover the ship. I went out to take this photo. I actually had them, they got into my shirt. They are just surrounding you. Now here you do have your caimans, your crocodiles. Very interesting when you're holding something that thinks your lunch. Now here you do have your tree iguanas, your leopards or jaguars. This is, by the way, at the SIG Zoo. This is a zoo in Manaus. And what the zoo does is the army, when they train in the jungle, if they find any animal that's injured, they bring it to this zoo for rehabilitation. So it is a very interesting zoo in that way. The most dangerous animal in the Amazon, the Cadi pig. What happens, they're very small and they hunt in packs. And what they'll do is they'll chase an animal and go around it in circles. And as they chase it, they'll jump up and they'll bite the haunches. Once the animal falls, gone. The only good thing about them, they stink. So you can smell them long before you see them. But they are probably the most dangerous animal in the jungle. Now here you do have here your panther. That's your cacao, your chocolate. When it's yellow, it's ripe. Now if you've never had it, that is a fruit around the nib. And it's a very tasty, sweet fruit. And then the nibs are taken and dried and made into chocolate. That's your cashew. That's the cashew nut on the bottom. That's the fruit on top. Very, very tasty, little astringent that way, but really a very tasty fruit, and also an extremely strong perfume smell. The first time in the Amazon, I loved the cashew, so I brought about 6 back to my cabin. By the next morning, they were out of my cabin. All you could smell in the whole corridor was the cashew. That is very interesting little thing. This is cupuaçu. Kupasu looks like a kiwi on extreme steroids. It is huge. It tastes very similar to an unsweet pina colada. Mild pina colada. Absolutely tasty in that way. These are palm fruits. And what they do with these, they boil them in salted water for a long period of time, good 2 hours. And they taste just like pumpkin. And you'll find them being sold on the streets as little street food. These are your lily pads. These are the Lake Victoria lily pad. These are the ones that Captain Laura McIntyre had the women coming out washing their clothes, putting the babies in the lily pad. The lily pads will hold them. Now these lily pads, the reason they're not destroyed is they have long spikes coming out the bottom. So anything that eats aquatic plants cannot get to it because of the spikes. They're absolutely gorgeous. That is anato, also called the lipstick plant. When it's unripe, it's yellow. When it's ripe, it's red. And this was the original coloring for red lipstick. But it's also used by the Amazon Indians for decoration. So you can see that is on her face. That's the noche. Here you do have, of course, your hibiscus. That's a red parrot. That's your orange peacock. And how many like orchids? These are all taken in one hike I took in Santarem. And they're all wild, just growing on the trees. Now this here is the flamboyant plant, or flame tree. This is your very prized wood, epe, I-P-E. And the yellow epe, and also you do have the purple epe. These flowers the iguanas love. So if you see these in bloom, look around, you'll find iguanas all over. There's one right there. Now here, you're coming into the different areas here. You have all different, but that's the acai. That's the new craze of the fruit for the health. And it grows out over the water. And what happens is they have to put nets out to catch the fruit because it will drop the fruit into the water. So they put the nets underneath it. Your water hyacinth. Now here we're coming in, more of the acai. That is your Brazil nut. They grow in these big pods. There's about 11 inside, normally 7 to 11. Now it's very interesting. When they're fresh and you break them open, you can light the end of it. It'll burn for 10 minutes. There's that much oil inside the Brazil nut. Your pineapple, that is your passion fruit. Reason the name of the cross, it comes out when it blooms. Now they are the size there of oranges. Now what they do, the locals, they'll cut the top off, put sweetened condensed milk in it, stir it, and drink it. It's an absolutely great dessert. Now here you do coming out here, this is a star apple, carambola. Of course, your bananas, that's calabash. They use those for containers, the shell once they dry it out for carrying water, carrying different goods. That's your guava. That's your water apple. It's been exported to Malaysia. It's a very big fruit now. And that's it growing fresh. That is one mango tree. They are unbelievable, all the different types of mangoes. That is guaraná. Guaraná is made into a drink. They actually have a guaraná soda. It has more caffeine than coffee. So it is grown that way for its caffeine aspect. That's what's called Camu, K-A-M-U. And then here, watermelons all throughout the area. And that's what started everything. That's the rubber seeds. And very interesting, the whole boom in that way. Now here, in the area of Manaus, I got taken out. There was a very nice resort, and they show you how the rubber. When they harvested the rubber, he didn't do it in the heat of the day. You started work about 4 in the morning, so he has a candle hat, so it's a light. And then you work until about 10 o'clock. Then the normal people would do, they would tend to their co-op area. So some people would grow cassava, some would fish, some would do that, and you bring it to the co-op, and that's how you barter and trade within the groups. So here at making the rubber, now you see him lighting a fire, and you see a little volcano, vulcanized rubber. How they made the rubber is you smoke it, and it turns it to black and hard. So here we are turning it over the top, and that's vulcanizing over the little volcano. Now Santarem, Saint Irene, Remember, no real roads connecting it to anywhere else. So everybody come in by boat. People living on their boats. Of course, that's a gas station. So you pull up your gas, and now all the cooking's done with the gas, the propane. So you turn around, you trade your propane tanks in, you go on your way. But some beautiful architecture here, and what I really love over the last few years is the new buildings are utilizing the old style of the Portuguese architecture. That's a new building. So that's the old, that's the new next door. So they are utilizing it. Once again, motorcycle taxis. You want to go anywhere, you get on a taxi. That's cassava. Now this is one of the co-ops, and this is the machine. Now cassava is poisonous when it's not heated or roasted. It's also what we make tapioca out of. So here, they got the grind wheel. Now they take and they squeeze out all the water. And then they take it, fluff it, and they dry it out in the pans. They make bread out of it. It's their potato, their staple is the cassava, the rubber tree. Now rubbers can be harvested and utilized many times. So once you tap it, it can be tapped again later on. It runs down, that's how they collect it. And here, the meeting of the waters of Santarém, once again, the blue, the clear. But now you see, this would be in December on dry land. Now, they do have water buffalo. They couldn't bring cows in because water would damage the cows. They can't live in that. The water buffalo adapts perfectly. So by the way, if you're ever there, many of their ice creams are made with buffalo milk. Just like buffalo milk mozzarella, buffalo milk ice cream is unbelievable. So once again, this is waiting for the water to come up. This is up on the hillside, still raised up. This area here is after the rainy season. Now, this is the way of life. Fishing is one of the main things you'll see all the time. There's a sloth wild, 2 of them there. Now, what can you tell me? There's no electricity. They have a generator. Look at the satellite dish. Yep. No electricity, but they got the satellite. That house had a TV bigger than mine because they produce a lot of electronics up in the Manaus duty-free zone. So, but it's very interesting going by and seeing the satellite dish. There's a little piranha. They taste just like tilapia, no flavor. Whatever you put on it gives it flavor. Now here, this is in Santarém in the woods, playing with the vines. Some of them you can open up one of the vines. You have to know which tree. But if you have the knowledge and the right one, you can get up to a pint of water out of a vine. Those are the aspect of termites. They're utilized for jungle survival with the training of the army. They taste just like pepper. But enough of those, you have protein. So you can pick different roots, vegetables, different things that way, and have protein. That on my mouth is another one that the Army utilizes, and that is coconut worms. It's the firefly. What it does, there's these small little coconuts. They don't grow any larger than $0.50. But what they do when they're first budding, the firefly lays its larva eggs into the coconut. As it hardens, as the worm grows, it eats the coconut. So when you taste it, it tastes like coconut, but yet it's a protein, so it gives you survival in the jungle. Going up, they would show us all the different things they make out of the roots, the different medicines. Those are the aspect I told you about the dart frog and also the poison from the tree. Those what they use to actually put it on. They make the darts out of that. So there, that's a dart off of that tree. You mix that with the dart frog, and that's how you can actually get the animals. Well, this here is what sunset is normally like. Because you're at the equator area, you normally don't get red sunsets, you get goldenrod sunsets. And they're absolutely breathtaking sunsets in the Amazon. Now this is Boca de Valeria. The Stella Solaris, before I joined it in the late 70s, was cruising to Manaus. The pilot turned around to the captain and said, listen, the current isn't what I thought it was, so we're making much more time. We're going to arrive in the middle of the night in Manaus. So the captain said, okay, is there anything we can do to stop somewhere? And he said, well, I know a woman, Valerie, in a small village. So the ship stopped. When the people found out, a bunch of other villages came in. That started, now this is basically almost every cruise line uses Boca del area. And when you come into the little village and all the people from the surrounding villages come in. But this is the rise of the river. This is December. You can see the tender, right? See the ground. Coming back a couple weeks later after leaving Manaus, after coming back from Fort Lauderdale, after Manaus. So you can see the rise of the water. That is the area in March. So here, end of December to mid-March, the rising of the water. The people have no problem with it. They live with that. So you can see everything raised up. I love it. They keep collecting money for that church and school. They've been doing it since the 80s. So it's just that, oh, we need to complete it. But here you can see the people coming in from the other villages, taking shade under your house. This here is a little restaurant area. Now look at that. You see how far the water comes up with the paint. Then I'll show you the year before that. So the young lady who runs it, that's how high the water came up. So all the way up those stilts, good foot up into the house. Those are your restrooms. There's a nice private one. That's Charlie. In the meeting house, and they sell beer and a couple different things. Every once in a while, he walks out of his nest, looks around, and walks back. Now here you have the locals here with the parrots, toucans. This gentleman's had this monkey for years. Now normally, monkeys and all different animals that way, kinkajous in the jungle, they are very friendly and very calm for a year. Then normally about a year, they do migrate away from their parents. They go individual. So they are not as friendly. This here is the only one I've ever seen that still thinks it's a child. And he thinks he's part of the family because you see him here grooming. He's the cutest little thing. Your little crocodiles. Now this is Patentines. This is my bucket list. Because they have here called the Boy Bumba. The Boy Bumba is very interesting. It is an actual fairy tale from mythology. And they have a ceremony of a contest every year. So it's very, very interesting going in. But one quick thing I forgot about Manaus. Where's my guests who are from Britain? You had a very evil man come in here. And he was very interesting coming in. He turned around and his name was Wickham. And he came in and he told everybody he was a haberdasher. And he was here to get feathers and also crocodile pelts. Unbeknown, he was under the auspices of England, and this is back in 1874, from Kew Gardens to get rubber seeds for the British plantations. What happens in Brazil and the Amazon, rubber cannot be planted next to each other. There's natural diseases, there's natural pests, so they have to be spaced. And what Wickham did is he took out 70,000 rubber seeds, and he put them under the crocodile pelts in the boat. He brought them back to England. England brought them over to Malaysia. Now, with the seeds, they didn't bring any of the pests. So you had those planted, and they could plant them next to each other. So within 10 years, they devastated, wiped out completely the rubber plantations of the aspect of Brazil. Only in World War II, when the plantations were not able to be taken by the Allies, did they actually start producing. You also had the gentleman, Ford. He came over and started a big plantation. Unfortunately, the gentleman who sold him the plantation was also the one who did the survey. And he didn't tell him that only in high water could a boat get there. And he also didn't tell him that it basically will not grow the way he told him. So Ford actually abandoned. It was called Forlandia. And he actually abandoned a whole town. They brought everything over from Detroit. They brought in, all the equipment, everything, and completely was abandoned in that way. So it's a little interesting that way. So you have here now Patentines, once again, you have the Boy Bumba. The Boy Bumba, basically what happens, you had two slaves, Katrina and her husband. She was pregnant. She was craving ox tongue. So he went out and he killed the master's ox. She was happy she had her ox tongue. So what happens? He gets caught. He gets sentenced to death. She goes to the witch doctor, Paget, and says, can you do anything? He brings the bull back to life. They celebrate happy ever after. Well, the first rubber barons that came into Patentines One guy said, if I am successful, I am going to build a bull that will honor your tail. Then another one said, well, if I be successful, I'll build one. So they built the two, Capricorso and Juanito. Juanito is red, Capricorso is blue. They started the whole town rooting on the different bulls. It got into an area they would march around with their singer, and their singer would curse out the other one, and the other one, there would be fights, battles. The town is actually in blue and red for different sides. Now they have the Bombadrome. What happens is it was a priest, and he started it at the church to have a festival with music and costumes. It's now grown to be as big as Mardi Gras. The costume makers are actually utilized during Mardi Gras, because Mardi Gras happens in the early spring. In this aspect, the Bombadrome takes place in June. So it's very interesting that way. So here we are coming in, beautiful church. Once again, everybody coming in by boat. That is the, it was the old royal princess. So here, that's the red, Guarachito, Capricosa, the blue. So here's red versus blue, in town, red. Then you can see the other part of town, blue. If you marry between red and blue, you don't talk to each other during the Boy Bumba. There'd be a lot of problems. So you have houses done in red. Then even red chairs. Coca-Cola, taxis, all red or blue. But now they've changed it. They have red and blue taxis. But Coca-Cola makes a blue can during the Boy Bumba, because nobody on the blue would drink a red can. You wouldn't get caught with one. But here you can see here, the blue, the beer sign in blue. So now you can see they have red and blue in the cabs. So here, everything done in red and blue. That's the Capricosa, the blue Coca-Cola, even political signs. But this I love. You can get red or blue piping for your house. They take it seriously. This is the Bombadrome, shaped like a bull. And it is phenomenal when you see it in that way. And what happens is, that covered area, they bring in guests to judge against the blue and the red sides. It is so contentious that they let the judges go. They get to know they're safely at home, and then they announce the winner. They will not announce the winner in that way here. So it's very, very interesting going through. Now, this is since 1988. The blue sit on one side, red on the other. They have a sportsman agreement. When the red is going on, the blue is silent. When the blue goes on, the red have to stay silent. You're looking at 3,500 participating. The musicians, that way here, they parade for 2 hours and 30 minutes each night for 3 nights in celebration. You have at least 400 drummers on each side. So picture the noise, the vibration. And I've had the pleasure, my bucket list is to come here in June. I've had the pleasure at least 15 times of seeing the rehearsals. Oh, I forgot to tell you this. This is the dolphin story. Now what happens is, they think that dolphins become men at night and can have their way with women. So there's the dolphin coming up. So if a young girl gets pregnant, doesn't matter how many boyfriends she had, she goes, no, Mom, it was the dolphins. But single women are scared to go in the water if they see a dolphin. That's how prolific it's trailed. But here is the Bombadrome. This is the guests. This here is the costume. Now, costumes, just like Carnival in Rio, cannot be reused. You can break them down and sew them into different things, but these are all different. Now remember, 400 drummers. There is the Garachito, the Red Bull. This is the water snake. Now they have their Loch Ness monster here. If a boat's lost or something that way, they will say the water snake, it breathes fire, actually took the boat. So they have the water snake come out, and then they have the harpy eagle come in and save the day. Now this is Manaus. This is 1,000 miles up. This is what rubber built. This is the area where literally cigars were lit with $100 bills. The wealthy, that way, that's the opera house. And that was done on a tax on the rubber. What happens is an opera company was touring South America. they wouldn't come to Manaus because it didn't have a good enough venue. So the rubber barons built this, and it's absolutely fascinating. Everything brought in from everywhere in the world, the architects and everything that way. Now you do have also the docks. The Port of Manaus was built by the British in 1902. It's been modernized in 2002, but it's still the same docks that we use for the rubber in that way here. Now you're looking at here, we're all together from the area on the Rio Negro, about 16 kilometers that way, about 10 miles from the Amazon. So there's no real mosquitoes because of the tannic acid here. But this here is the market. Now I'll show you the market soon. You might recognize the architect. He built a little thing in Paris, a tower, Eiffel. He actually came down and designed buildings here. But there were the docks from 1902, steamers coming in. Now here, I mentioned the duty-free zone. You have Coca-Cola, Nokia, the only Harley-Davidson plant outside the United States. Now this is the city of Manaus, over 1 million people, 1,000 miles up the Amazon. That's the customs house. That red roofs are the area of the market. That's the opera house you see right there. That is Little Big Ben. It's a clock and watch repair shop. Now the Amazon Opera House, as I mentioned, absolutely stunning building to go through. It was that way here. By the way, Manaus at that time, first city in the area of Brazil to have electric lights, storm sewers, running water, also sewage treatment, electric trolleys, also the first Brazilian university, Manaus Free University. Also during the rubber boom, many monuments, many different things constructed. Now, 1896, December 31st is when this building was inaugurated. You have the beautiful tiles and all that coming through. Now, you did have the aspect of the rubber when it held 1914. You did have it fall down a little bit, but it's totally restored. And it's absolutely fascinating, the artwork. But you had people from Scotland. You had slate from the areas of Scotland and Wales. You had glass brought in from France. You had stoneworks brought in from all out through Europe and everything else that way. It is just fascinating. And the wooden floor, all the hardwoods of the Amazon, and there's not a nail in the floor and everything else. It took nearly 20 years to complete this building when you go through it. Now here, you do have here 36,000 tiles on that dome I showed you coming through. Beautiful chandeliers all throughout. There's your wooden floors. All your different that way. All the composers. That is if you're standing under the Eiffel Tower. The curtain and the acoustics are phenomenal. Now this is interesting. They were making so much money because of the Rio Negro being tannic acid and the Amazon full of mud. They would send their clothing over on the ships to Europe to be cleaned and brought back. So here, this is the area of the trade, what they call the meeting of the water areas. So you have there all throughout the area of Brazil, you have these black and white tiles, and you have them all different things. But this is the meeting of the water of trades between America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. That's what it looks like at night. Now the Mercado, designed by Eiffel, very interesting. You go in, it starts trading about 3 or 4 in the morning. The fish are most expensive at 3 or 4 in the morning. By 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they're dirt cheap. No refrigeration. So the fish sit out. You have all the different staples. Your dried shrimp, fish. Fish, you wouldn't believe the different fish that come out. But once again, no refrigeration, so they just sit, and they get cheaper as the day goes on. That's a small piaracu. That is your cati, the one I told you about with the thing, and you can see the rib on top. There's your palm fruits. Now looking at the area, now most of these favelas recently have been knocked down. And it's very interesting that they knocked them down, gave people money to move out, and they moved right back in. Now the meeting of the waters, this is the Amazon and Rio Negro. Now this is late January. This is dry land during the area of dry. In the wet, it's flooded. So take you up. That is, you see he had the sandal on his hand. That's what I told you about with the lilies. They have these big thorns coming out. So that way it protects them from being eaten. You come by the houses, kids come out with all the different animals. That is a bar, restaurant, nightclub. People doing their normal way of life. This is where you have the lily pads all throughout. Now this is quickly man's impact. This is what happens, a slash and burn. You have the cutting of the forest, the mineral being mined, and just some destruction. This is how it starts, a road. Doesn't sound like much, but once a road's built, you start having more and more. And you can see, once you clear it, it's red clay. So this is the growth. Now here is your mineral mining. They're doing a lot to clean this up, but it's all chemicals that go in. And you can see here, normally in this region, there might be 3 people per square mile, and now you have all this. Here's your slash and burn. So here you can see clearing out an area.